Hello again, everybody. Just one little technical point. If you're watching from a laptop or a desktop computer, you might want to just click Gallery View in the top right-hand corner to make sure you can see everything properly. So today we are going to take you over, a brief overview of the Redwood Group, which is the group to which Edmund Bell belongs. There are 4 companies in that group, so it's not just us. Then we're going to tell you specifically about the kind of processing that we do within the Redwood Group and how that pertains to Edmund Bell's range. And then finally, we're going to explain to you a little bit why we think there are benefits to having UK origin goods.
I think so, and I think if you've been on with us for the last 3 presentations that we've done, you'll note that we've touched on this UK production sort of thing in various different ways, in terms of sustainability, in terms of stock availability, in terms of the UK origin side of things in this Brexit world that we're in now, which is Fiona's favourite words at the minute, and what we are doing behind the scenes to try and combat that, and how the group as a whole puts us in a real good position and kind of works together to help you ultimately.
So let's take a little look at the Redwood Group. As you may have heard in some previous sessions that we did today, we've explained that in 2008, Edmund Bell was bought by the Athertons, who are the current owners. They had previously set up Redwood Company, and the group is now as a whole named after Redwood.
Yep, so there's 4 of us within that group. So it's Redwood, as we discussed, who's our kind of holding company. And you've got Edmund Bell, which obviously we're very biased towards. And you've got PWG, which is a finishing specialist. And A1 Blinds up in the northeast, which brings us another slight element to our offering in terms of retail.
So you can see that everything here revolves around fabrics and textiles in one way or another. Some parts of the group have more of a bent towards contract and manufacturing and finishing, whilst other parts are more about the actual wholesale or distribution. And sometimes most of the group B2B, with the exception of A1, which is more B2C in focus. But the lovely thing is it's a significant group. It's all based in the UK, and it gives us, as we're going to discuss later, an awful lot more control of our supply chains.
Yeah, you'll see with the other 3 businesses that the word manufacturer comes into play. And I think that's quite apt in terms of how this infrastructure has been developed and put together. Edmund Bell, traditionally we're a wholesaler in essence, but around us we've got an infrastructure of manufacturers.
We're in essence the distribution arm of, if you like, the Redwood Group for the kind of product that PWGF puts out. So as you can see, going to be coming up on screen just now with reference to Edmund Bell specifically, in 2020 we sold about 6 million linear meters of fabric. Of course, more in 2019, sadly so. And well over 90% of everything we sell in the blackout upholstery and linings categories is UK origin goods. So and that's running into the hundreds of thousands of meters at the end.
It's quite incredible, to be honest. When you think about the last 12 months in particular, 6 million meters of fabric in 2020 is huge. And to be able to say 90% of that in those sort of product categories are UK origin, you'll struggle to find anyone else that does that.
I mean, I've previously worked in other fabric companies, and even in the very highest tiers, the very highest quality, highest price brackets, a lot is made out of China. So, the fact we can do that here is testament to the management.
It is, and it's an actual, although we see it as a plus point for us in terms of what we do day to day, actually it's a huge point for you guys, because that's going to make things a little bit simpler in the months and years to come.
So just to touch on Redwood as well, our parent company, if you like, it is worth explaining them. They have much more of a technical, we're already, of course, Edmund Bell is offering technical textiles, but they're one step further into that, if you like. They offer things that you would use maybe in really heavy contract prisons, in healthcare, PU-coated fabrics, mattress tickings, this kind of thing, finished goods. As you can see in the second point, and I think this is really important, and it's been a really important source of income to us, in truth, this last year. They've been doing an awful lot of work for the NHS, so for the National Health Service here in the UK, which is both nice in terms of keeping the group in a good position, but also, a bit of a service.
And it's a testament to the guys that run the company and the guys that work there, to be honest with you, and to have that entrepreneurial side and to have that ability to just take a product that is outside their comfort zone and create it to the spec that is required of it. Is just astounding, to be honest.
Crazy stuff like Crib 7 fabric.
Wow.
So this is the part of the company that we go on about all the time, PW Greeners. This is our finishing mill. So it's an absolutely huge, I guess, factory, finishing mill over a large area here in Rochdale. Proper industrial revolution, exciting place, and you're going to see some photos of the processes that go on there, and even some footage shortly.
There's a skill set to be found here, and this is, again, it's a running theme. When you've seen one of our earlier presentations today, we'll talk about Edmund Bell, started in 1855. These guys have been there since 1902.
We've got some photos from back then as well. So
I'm not in it.
So as you can see, they finished 72,500 linear meters of fabric every month. That's a lot of fabric to go through their hands. This is the place where we'll see it come in A-frames on giant batches, giant rollers, and then converted ultimately into the kind of fabric that Edmund Bell warehouses here and ships out to you. So let's talk a little bit then about the specific processes that go on at PWG that pertain to the ranges that we sell from Edmund Bell.
So we have talked about products this morning, and we talk about various things like back coating, and whether that's upholstery or whether it's a decorative blackout. We talk about dyeing, crease resistant finishes, salt proof finishes, all this kind of stuff. But how does that actually get put into a fabric? It's not as simple as it sounds. Definitely not.
Actually, I mean, I think we're gonna step into linings finishing first. And the reason we do that is linings are obviously commodities. They are low-priced articles, sometimes severely low-priced. They're an article on which there is the most price war, I guess. And yet, there are so many processes that happen to make that article interesting. In fact, to the point where the first time we ever took the UK area sales managers around PWG, they were quite amazed at the prices we were selling things at. So let's take a little tour through linings and some of the things we do at PWG to make them relevant. Or prior to that, we want to show you some photos that I mentioned.
Well, you're right, that is 1902, isn't it?
Yeah, so these are actually from PWG. You can see a heck of a lot of people working there at that time. I think there's a bit more automation going on in truth nowadays.
I suppose to give you a bit of background there, you hear of these kind of mills, these type of factories, I guess, and there's a lot of generations that have worked in this area. It's quite a specific skill set that really, it's not really transferable anywhere else, I guess. So these guys are fathers and sons and uncles and aunties and nieces and daughters, and this has provided jobs and income for that area over the last 115 years.
Since the Industrial Revolution, literally. Absolutely. Yeah. So as I said, getting back to processing linings, the actual weaving stage is obviously not done at PWG, it's a finishing mill. So the greige comes in there, typically in big batches, different formats. But one of the very first things we do is we bleach it. And here you can actually see some of the lining coming off a pallet and into our greige batching machine.
It's quite scary how big this factory is, and the size of these
airport
size is huge. It's huge. When you're buying your roll of lining, or your
humble roll of lining,
you're negotiating at 10p per meter. If you could see how this stuff was manufactured, it would change your opinion of the fabric that you're using. So
as it says there, what's happening is it's opening out the fabric from folded state into its full width, which is typically something like 137, 140 centimeters, opened out so that it goes through the bleachers properly. So bleaching isn't as simple as you think it is. Actually, there's multiple different kinds of bleaching, and in fact, most of our linings go through, I think, 3 different bleaching processes before they are the white or then dyed to off-white that you purchase them as.
And again, the aesthetics of lining, in terms from a sales point of view, from your point of view, your clients, the aesthetics is they want a bright white, they want a pale ivory, they want those colours. You can't just miraculously put together a piece of cotton and come up with those colours. There has to be some level of processing, and this is where it starts. So prior to it even going into this bit here, most of the linings are singed as well. They pass through a machine to singe off any loose fibre, and then they go through massive machines, basically in ropes. They're turned almost into ropes and are drawn through a whole series of different machines and through to bleaching.
situations. You can see caustic soda, sodium hydrochloride, and hydrogen peroxide. So this is a place where you need to wear your gloves. And you don't wear ballerina pumps in that part of the factory.
No.
So this is another really interesting, this is actually one of my favourite segments, in fact, probably of PWG. Doesn't sound exciting, but these are the drying tins. But it's an amazing machine, huge, big rollers that are heated. And after the linings have been bleached, of course they're wet, they're then passed through all these rollers to dry them out and to basically, I guess, secure the bleach process.
Yeah, yeah. And then they run through and dried with steam heated rollers before they kind of move on to the next step. And again, just look at the size of that machine and the work that has to go into engineering these things just for your commodity lining.
Just wondering where I put Cascade, because I know I have a Cascade hanger here to show you exactly. Yeah, I think I've got a Cascade hanger there because I'm pretty sure we wanted to explain the dyeing process. One of the things that one of the articles you may know that we dye up very frequently, there you go, is Cascade. Cascade is a lining quality that is dyed up in relatively small batches. We don't actually do polyester dyeing at PWG at present, thinking about it, but cotton dyeing certainly. And as you can see, the roll, the small roll goes into this big machine and ultimately is drowned in dye. So we are going to talk about stentering as well. You can see this is even, a really humble white piece of lining goes through a majority of these steps. So stentering is essentially different means of holding onto the sides of a piece of fabric, whether it's with pins or with clamps, and pulling it out so that it reaches its full width and it stays, has good dimensional stability at that width.
Especially with cotton, with 100% cotton products, that is difficult because cotton naturally, it shrinks when it's washed, and the dimensional stability is usually quite bad with a cotton product. And this sort of stentering will ensure that stays as stable as possible for you.
Again, obviously you can't see or hear these machines, but it is fascinating places like a railway station or something. There is noise, it's definitely earplug time. Yeah. And the machines are really vast. Some of these clamp stenters, I think the Montfort clip stenter, it basically, pulls out the fabric, grabs it by each selvage, which is the side of the lining, and then pulls it through this machine and continues to put more and more pressure on it until it's opened out fully to the width designed by the customer.
Yeah, you can see the point there, the temperature it has to be at to get to that, that cure, that crease-resistant finish. And, for us to be able to give you a binder full of options in terms of linings with crease-resistant finishes, different colours, different technical makeup, some cottons, polycottons, satins, luxury satins. It's a huge job.
Almost to attain the level of continuity of finish, the consistency of finish that we do on firstly such a budget product, so consistently with a natural fibre. It's big science. So here, this is raising is the next part of the process for only certain types of fabrics. So specifically, this is a Mario Crosta raising machine, and this is really used to, I think almost like with thermals and things like this, where you're looking for that soft brush finish and potentially for it to help retain heat a little bit better as well.
So those of you that bought our napped thermal lining with the raised cotton on it, this is how it happens.
So there's thermal in terms of actual thermal properties, but also they're often used almost just to thicken out whatever they're being used with as well. So give a bit more body to it. So this is a slide that I guess relates to every part of the product that we're going to talk about. This one's specifically about linings. I think just again to show that quality control is something we do on everything, even the commodity goods. So these get passed through inspection machines with true meters, and we literally have people watching to make sure that there isn't an excess of faults.
Yeah, and this is important. And those of you that buy lots of lining that are workroom orientated will know that the old-fashioned kind of red tags that get put in a row where there's a fault, to have that tolerance of that one fault in every 10 meters. This is kind of where that came from, where it starts. Because when you talk about a huge facility like this, where everything is white and everything is finished in such a way it's impossible not to have any kind of flaws.
And again, it's a natural fibre.
It's a natural fibre.
You're not going to avoid the odd slug or something like that.
But there is a heck of a lot of work that goes into trying to ensure they are kept to an absolute minimum.
We're just going to show you next a little bit about a specific finishing process that you might find interesting, which is Scotch guarding, essentially stain proofing, right? We use this on various different kinds of articles. We're going to talk about it here, I think, in relation to our blackout, because it's actually used as the first stage in blackout production. Because what it does is ensures that the blackout coating that we apply to the back of a blackout doesn't penetrate the face layer. And that's because the face fabrics that we choose for blackouts are intentionally very light. They're dense with the intention of not allowing that blackout to penetrate, and they're very light.
And then this comes into, you know, what we keep saying over the last couple of sessions, and what we've been saying to everybody that listens, is there's a lot of work that we do right here in the UK in terms of bringing these 3-pass blackouts to the market for you. And it's not by chance that they're getting softer. It's not by chance the handles are great and sensation is soft, and that the velvet on the front of the face looks like it's a really expensive velvet that you get from a big brand. It doesn't happen by accident or mistake. There's science to it.
So blackout coating. So this is really the be all and end all for the contract side of the business at this time. So we have kind of explained to an extent in our previous session how our blackout works. There are many different kinds of blackout out there. Some producers use silicon, for example. There are such things as laminated blackouts, which are back to back. At the moment, PWGF makes acrylic blackouts, and typically 3-pass acrylic, which essentially means that your face fabric, after the finishing that you've viewed, the Scotch guarding, is batched up and then it's sent through this Bruckner 2 blackout coating machine. So can we just go back there, Amy, just to show that particular slide? Yeah, so this is the black layer. So when we say 3-pass, it means 3 passes of blackout. And it's an incredibly labor-intensive process, this. Essentially, you get a white layer first, and then the fabric passes through a 30-meter-long oven to bake.
It does, and I think it's key to emphasise, for those of you that don't know, the 3-pass side of it. I think so we go through this once, twice, 3 times, and that fills in all your little holes. But it also gives you can do that on a 2-pass. That will still make it 100% blackout. But what it won't give you is the ability to put that flock in and have that final finish and have that softer handle. And there's myths on the marketplace that if you do
number of passes,
it gets better, which quite frankly is a myth. 3-pass blackout is the most common. 3-pass blackout is the best in terms of handle because, again, the science has gone into it.
Whether it's a myth, I think it's a marketing ploy.
Marketing ploy,
isn't it? Because if you can achieve true blackout on a soft handle with 3 passes, there's no reason to do a 4th one. It adds cost. It makes it heavier and stiffer, and that isn't what you're looking for. You're looking for as light a fabric as possible, probably.
Yeah, you end up paying for a benefit that you would get with a good 3-pass blackout.
Yeah. So essentially there you've seen the black layer has gone on, then again it's gone through this 30-meter oven. So bear in mind there's a lot of time involved in this. It has to dry fully as well. It comes back around, it has its final white layer, and here you can see actually the knife edge and the fat of the white. This is the white layer, final white layer of acrylic coating that will be passed over the fabric. Then it goes through, and prior to going through the oven, the last time, it gets the viscose flock applied. Again, a very technical process that involves some huge voltage. I'm not going to venture what the number is. Anyway, it's under high voltage, and the flock is kind of fired onto the fabric so that it lands penetrating the fabric upwards. So that you've got a really nice soft fabric finish.
Absolutely. And how many of you knew that your blackout, decorative blackout that you specified or you've bought and manufactured, how many of you knew that went through an oven at one point?
Exactly, it literally gets baked. It gets baked 3 times. It's like oven ready. Yeah, and so this is actually, flocking is the same kind of finish as you would find on like jewellery boxes and things like this. So, yeah. So here you can see actually part of the oven. It's a massive, massive affair with, inspection doors in it. It gets to a really high temperature, so you wouldn't go in. You wouldn't be going in there.
You wouldn't cook your muffins in there.
Yeah, so that's what goes into blackout. And in fact, in upholstery, there's a very similar kind of thing goes on for cigarette and match and Printlab coatings as well.
Yeah, cool. And then to finish it all off, you know, we've got a huge, we've got lab testing where we test all of our fabrics in our own lab, and we use third-party laboratories as well. So all of our certification is done to the correct standard that you guys will need for everything that we're telling you that we do today.
We use it, so just to be clear, the in-house laboratories are used for indicative testing. They are used basically to tell us, do we want to now spend the money, because there's considerable money involved in third-party accreditation. And this is part of why it's quite a niche market, this, because testing a German B1, testing an EN 13773 is an expensive endeavour, and we have to have all of them to make ourselves relevant to you. And as you can see here on the list, you know, we're testing for many, many other things as well, some of which we then get accredited, and others are which are part of our kind of internal QC, if you like.
And this all builds back to what the whole message around these 2 days is that we do all of this as a prerequisite.
You don't have to.
This is it. This is our day job. This is what we do. This is what we're experts in. We do it so that you know those things have already been covered and certified.
Definitely check in with us tomorrow into the technical selling, I think it's called, session at, what time is that?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. GMT tomorrow. That's going to be a session together with Ashley Aitchison. He is our fabric technologist. He's going to take us through some real specifics of the way tests work, the way they're different, you know, sustainability questions. So lots of the stuff that we've kind of touched on here, he'll take us through in a bit more detail. May be helpful for you to explain to your customers.
Absolutely, and I think just to kind of follow on from that, we're looking at the key benefits. What are the benefits of this UK production, this UK origin? Why is it beneficial?
Why would you care?
Yeah, what difference does it make to you? Well, quite frankly, it makes quite a big difference. You've got shorter lead times. There's the more chance, especially now more than ever, there's more chance that we'll have the stock that you need to fulfill your client's demand.
Especially given that we have these internal discussions about stocking all the time. As I think Steve may have mentioned previously, we keep stocks of finished goods, so a finished blackout with its coating on. We also keep stocks of the base fabric uncoated, meaning if you have a single large requirement, we can do that finishing for you in a much shorter lead time.
Really, to quantify that, it puts a lead time down from 14 to 16 weeks to 6. And that can make a big difference to the projects that you guys are working on right now. And not only that, we touch on lower the carbon footprint, and again, this is something that we're working on quite heavily at the minute in terms of how we quantify it. But use your own mind. If we're buying a base cloth that weighs 70 grams a square meter, and we're importing that, and by the time we finished it becomes 240 grams per square meter. Imagine if we were importing that 240 grams per square meter directly.
There are, especially on blackout, there are very few producers outside the Far East nowadays.
Yeah.
A dwindling number. The PWGF is one of the very few and a very good one. And so your options for bringing these things in a sustainable manner are few and far between. And that's top of mind for us.
Absolutely, it is. And I'll let Fiona talk to you about duties and customs paperwork. It's your favourite subject.
No, so duties and customs paperwork. If you've had anything to do with the B word recently, in a direct way, you'll know major headache. But I think the message we want to get across here is that, firstly,
you're having the headache for.
I'm having the headache for you. Don't you worry about it if you're buying from us and we're selling, selling on. And UK origin goods, of course, if they're true UK origin preferential by the FTA definition, and again, we're taking care of that, they are not subject to duties. They are Brexit proof.
So on a serious note, we're laughing and joking about it because it's become a hot topic, and I think it's at a point where you don't laugh and cry. But the key point for you guys to note is that we are absorbing as much of this headache as we can for you, and it keeps our products competitive and available to you at short notice, obviously, as well.
Yeah, and indeed, actually, to do with income, I mean, it's probably more likely that you would have been buying things from maybe the EU. They will now be subject potentially to duties and taxes and other things if you're a UK customer. Yeah. So yeah, unless those goods have EU origin, which many do not in truth, then suddenly now they will be subject to duties and taxes that they aren't if they come from us.
There you go. And another point there, local expertise and standards. So what we've shown you today is that we have a manufacturing facility just over towards Liverpool, we have a finishing plant less than a couple of miles away from here. You've got us here in Rochdale. We've got experts within each field, whether they're internal or external in the field, and hopefully at some point in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be able to get out and visit you guys. For now, you're going to have to listen to us talking at you, I guess. But we've got a lot of expertise in all sorts of areas. So, you know, don't just use us for somebody to get a sample from or to get a price from. If you've got some technical questions,
a tricky question,
bring it to us.
Yeah, we've got someone to answer it. And again, I think the key thing is hopefully we're responsive. You know, we do have, apart from the technical staff, the design staff, the technical staff, those in actual manufacturing, we also have a really good coverage of sales managers and, customer service that I think gives a responsive service.
And I think one point to make on that finally before we let you leave us is that obviously in the current climate, that's tougher. We've got less and less time to do the things that we want to do. The businesses and the supply chain that we work with, there's staff shortages, less time. Just be aware that we are here and we understand that you're time pressured. And if you've got a question that you're mulling over that you can't find the answer to, come and use us because we'll shorten that time for you because we know how busy you are. And on that note. So
if you aren't sick of hearing us talk about fabric related things, if you are, the next session is for you anyway, because I will be there and Stephen will be speaking to some other specialists from the industry with different kind of focus and an interest about how they have been weathering, how they expect to weather COVID and what they think is new in the market.
More importantly, we're just looking at that future and positivity, I guess, looking at what each industry and market sector are looking forward to over the next 12 months rather than dwelling too much on the last.
There's too many good things to come.
Hopefully.
Amy, can you tell us what time that's at?
3:30 this afternoon.
So 3:30, 15:30 GMT, and we hope you'll join us for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.